Hey dudes, welcome to Splat from the Past, the only 80s themed horror and sci-fi show where things can get totally radical. Now today, I will be welcoming my 7th guest from the 1985 cult classic Just One of the Guys, and that is Robert Fieldsteel, who played Phil of the nerdy space cadet duo Willie and Phil. And I'm having him on the show today to talk about the making of that movie. He also did a couple of movies with John Cassavetes before that. Gloria, which he was assistant to the producer, and he had a role in Love Streams. And he also did other things as well after Just One of the Guys. He was in this quirky little theatrical movie called Miss Firecracker that I love. Along with, he was a guest star on Sledgehammer and Married with Children. I'm going to ask him about all that stuff today, and I can't wait. It's going to be awesome. Oh, and I also forgot to mention he was also in Beastmaster 2 Through the Portal of Time. Yeah, got a lot of good stuff to ask him about today. So, here is my interview with Robert Fieldsteel. This is such a great honor. Thank you for taking the time today.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm very happy to. Yeah, and making Just One of the Guys was a happy experience. Mm-hmm. You know, it's good to talk about.
So, going back in time, did you gravitate toward acting early on?
Yeah, I did. Going very early on, I would give puppet shows alone in my room, which I even then knew that I had the proclivity to offend people, so I did them alone. And then, I did a lot of acting in school, in junior high and high school and college, and it was a passion of mine for a very long time.
Mm-hmm. Did you do a lot of school plays and community theater and all that?
Yeah, I did a lot of school plays. There was a teen summer theater in my town, Port Washington, New York, that I did. A lot of musicals. I also sang. Mm-hmm. And, and usually, much of the time, had good roles. So it was, it made sense for me to go into it. I mean, actually, right after college, I did not go to pursue an acting career. I worked in production for a few years, at first with Renee Taylor and Joe Bologna, and then for several years with John Cassavetes. And then I left working for Cassavetes full-time and got a lot of training. I studied briefly with Stella Adler. I studied with Bobby Lewis. I studied with Jose Quintero, and then took the full 2-year Meisner technique program with a teacher named Joanne Barron, who was very good. And halfway through that 2-year process, I started making my living as an actor, which was very fortunate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was reading about how you had worked with John Cassavetes as production or assistant to the producer on Gloria.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that gave me, I was not on the shoot. I was manning the home office. He had his own distribution company because he owned 5 of his films. So I was taking care of that in L.A. That was right after I got hired. In fact, I had been working for him a couple of weeks, and he was getting ready to shoot a film and changing his offices into this apartment that he would film in the movie. But he came up to me and said, Robert, Gloria was called One Summer Night. Columbia is going to do One Summer Night, and we're going to be going to New York, so I want you to man the office. I said, okay, great. When is that going to start? He says, tomorrow. So
didn't have much time.
I did that, but when he came back, I was assistant to the producer, Sam Shaw, who was very much an artistic producer. He was a famous photographer. He knew a lot of people in the arts. In fact, he got Romare Bearden to do the credit sequence for Gloria, which was quite an honor. And I got to see all of filmmaking, which I didn't have that much background in. I was very young. I got to see the editing process and the different versions, and got to see the scoring and John talking to Bill Conti, who did the score. And it was really a very good education.
Wow. Did John Cassavetes end up mentoring you?
Yeah, very much so, I would say. Yeah, I worked for him full-time for 3 years, and then on a part-time basis for the next several years, just doing the film bookings, and I also worked on the film Love Streams from pre-production right through to the end. I was dialogue coach on that film, which was basically being like a rehearsal partner and running lines. And then I had my first film role in that film, and was lucky enough to have my first film role be a scene with John Cassavetes and Jenna Rollins. So that was not a bad start.
Not a bad start at all, no.
Yeah. During those years, during the 3 years, it was tough for John because he couldn't afford to make his own films anymore with his own money. He'd made 2 films that lost a lot of money, Killing of the Chinese Bookie and Opening Night. And so he was constantly writing new films and getting people to rehearse them, and he could get pretty much any star in the world wanted to work with him, but the studios just would not back him, and he went through much frustration for several years before he was able to make Love Streams. He did spend a lot of time, a big chunk of time, doing 3 plays in rotating rep that he directed all of them, and I was a co-producer on those and also acted in them, small roles in them. And so that was quite an experience too. He did a play called Knives that he wrote with Peter Falk, and then 2 films by the writer Ted Allen. 2 plays by the writer Ted Allen. One was The Third Day Comes, which Jenna and an actor named Michael McGuire starred in, and then Love Streams, which was starring Jenna Rollins and John Voight.
Yeah.
So we had all of these people doing it in Equity Waiver, which was like, we were doing it in like a 65-seat house. So that was pretty wild.
Yeah, wow, that's pretty wild. So when you're in all these acting classes and stuff, was there anybody in your class that went on to become hugely successful?
I'm trying to think. Hugely successful. Well, the director Martha Coolidge, who was already doing quite well, she took the first year of the Meisner and was my scene partner and sort of the heaviest duty part of it. And Christopher McDonald was in the Stella Adler class that I was in. And then when I started with Bobby Lewis, there actually were some very well-known people taking the class. I was in the advanced class because I had studied with Stella, which was a combination of like stars like Anne Bancroft was in the class. And then he had some very young actors in it. I was one of them. I did a scene from Shakespeare's Timon of Athens with William Shallard, who is probably best known for being the father on the Patty Duke Show.
Right.
But he had a very interesting career. He was president of the Screen Actors Guild for several years and was blacklisted by the Hollywood Blacklist. And
Right.
it was great hearing all of his old stories, which he loved to tell, and he was thrilled that I was interested in hearing them. So that was Bobby's class.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when I talked to Ari Gross last year, he told me that you, him, and John Apicella were part of the same theater company at one point.
Yeah. And, in fact, Ari and John are members of the same company in Los Angeles, a different company now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thought that was funny. Yeah.
Yeah, First Stage. In fact, my first experience with First Stage was what eventually became Just One of the Guys. I was rehearsing a play in a rehearsal studio, and then right after us, this organization, First Stage, was having an open house, and they had a potluck, and the food looked good, so I stuck around. And Lisa Gottlieb, who I didn't know at all at that point, came up to me and said, "You look like you could be a high school student. Are you an actor?" And I said, "Yeah." And she said, "Would you do my reading?" And I said, "Sure." And Ari was also cast in that reading, and I didn't know Ari before that. And we did the reading, and people liked what we did, and Lisa liked what we did. And she said to me, "Well, this movie's in development at Columbia, so if it gets made or when it's made, I'd like you to be in the movie." And I said, "Great," and then walked away thinking, "Yeah, and we'll have lunch on Mars, too." But it turned out, that fall, I got a call from Lisa saying, "You want to come in and audition for it? I'd really like you to play it." And Ari and I auditioned. What was very interesting was the Just One of the Guys production office was Cassavetes' old office.
Wow.
That I had spent 2 years in. So I felt pretty comfortable in there, and we got cast in the film.
Wow. Yeah, you're my seventh interview from Just One of the Guys. What did it say on paper that Willie and Phil were?
Oh, originally, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, originally we were Trekkies.
Mm-hmm.
And then Paramount got wind of what Columbia, it was a Columbia picture, what Columbia was doing, and said, "You can't do that. We own the rights to Star Trek, and you can't use any kind of reference to Star Trek." So, and we found this out after they had started shooting the film. And they had this idea that we would be horror film buffs, but that didn't really seem to work too well. So we came up with this idea that matched the film thematically. Thematically, the film is very much like Stranger in a Strange Land.
Mm-hmm.
So we decided that we would play these outer space kids, these kids who acted as if they were aliens from outer space viewing Earth for the first time. And it was a pretty crazy idea, but we wrote this rather eloquent letter to Lisa, and also I think maybe to Jeff Franklin, who was writing at that point. And we went to show up to shoot without having seen the script to see if they'd changed anything. And we got the scripts from the production office, and nothing had been changed. And we're saying, like, "Oh my God, are we even going to be in this movie?" So, I mean, they brought us down here, but we don't really have any roles at this point. And the first thing they shot was the prom.
Yeah.
And we did that weird little dance together at the prom, and people liked it in the rushes. So it became developed from there that we would do what we did. But the only scene that was actually written for us was that first English class scene, which Jeff really, I think, captured what these kids were like. But that was the only thing that was written. Everything else we pretty much made up ourselves. And we would run it by Lisa, of course. But, yeah, it was really kind of wild to get to essentially craft your own role in a major studio picture when you're a complete unknown in your 20s.
Yeah, because it seems to me that you guys, were working together as a team and trying to bring the characters to life, with certain moments in the movie, like the guys getting separation anxiety in gym class, or you guys in the locker room murmuring, "I hate gym. I really hate gym."
Yeah. In fact, with both of those, in the original script, we weren't even in the gym scenes. Lisa put us in the gym scenes, and then, in the locker room, she said, "Why don't you guys just say, I hate gym, I hate gym, I hate gym." And we did a variation on that, which is what ended up in the movie.
Yeah.
And then we were originally going to, in the background, be jumping up and down on trampolines. And Lisa ordered up a trampoline, which they delivered, but then we came up with the idea that we thought was better of, letting out these primal screams when we get separated. And Lisa preferred that idea, so we did that. But then she had to kind of explain away why she ordered up a trampoline for, no reason. So you'll see that Stu Charno's reptile puts his reptile on the edge of the trampoline, and that was the only thing it was used for. But
yeah. It's funny you mentioned how they were going to do a thing where the guys were horror movie fanatics. Jeff Franklin ended up putting that in another movie he wrote called Summer School 2 years later.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
I think it worked out for the best on that.
Yeah.
I like when you have the pizza pocket and you say it's a carbon-based douchebag.
What? Oh, right. Yeah, was that? I don't even remember that one.
Yeah. Yeah, in the one of the cafeteria scenes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, my favorite scene is when Rick humiliates Greg in front of the whole cafeteria. What was it like filming that scene? It looks like it was so intense.
Yeah, it was intense. And in fact, it was interesting what happened with Billy Zabka in that scene. We were driving to a restaurant at one point, and Billy was saying, "I don't understand why in that scene I don't just go up and stop him."
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I relayed this story where this guy was sort of bullying me in the cafeteria, and I took up a thing of applesauce with whipped cream, and I slammed it in his face. This was in 8th grade.
Yeah.
And the guy just went, "What did I do? What did I do?" He didn't attack me. He was so stunned that he was just sitting there going, "What did I do?" And Billy, if you see him, he really acts it wonderfully.
Mm-hmm.
That film where you just see him kind of going, "What?
Yeah.
What is happening?" So we were very communicative with each other. We exchanged ideas. We talked about what we were shooting, getting the crew involved. George Little, who was the costume designer, was great. He really went with what we were doing. In L.A., he took us in for fittings for the costumes, and he'd pulled your kind of basic standard Fear Nerd costumes, outfits, and we said, well, actually, we're going to be playing these kids who think they're coming in from outer space and viewing the high school. We were Trekkies, and he, rather than get at all, some people would have had an ego and say, what are you, 25-year-olds telling me what to do? he said, "Wow, that's a great idea." So he did all of the costuming to go along with that idea. So that was very exciting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love how at the end of that scene, and I brought this up to Ari, and he didn't even know the answer to this. You guys started doing that alien victory chant.
Yes.
Yeah, what is that?
We just made it up. We had the idea, well, how about after that we do this victory song? It sounds sort of like a, football song or something.
Yeah.
But all in the language, our language. And so we rehearsed it with each other, and we did it. And we rehearsed it quite a bit, because it took a little time to figure out the lyrics, such as they were. But that's how that came about.
Yeah, you guys are doing the Star Trek Klingon fingers and everything. It's so funny. Yeah. What was it?
In fact, Lisa recorded us doing Love is a Many Splendored Thing in our language with different, and we came up with different versions, like a straight version, a jazzy version, all this, and she taped us because she wanted to run it over the end credits. But evidently she played it for some of the powers that be, and they were all like, "What? What is that?" So that kind of put the kibosh on that whole idea.
It sounds like she was trying to really make you guys like the stars of the movie.
She was great. I mean, she was really supportive of what we were doing.
Yeah. What was it like filming the prom scene?
Cold.
Cold?
Very cold. It was the first thing we did, and I thought, oh, we're going to be in Arizona, so it'll be like, shorts weather. At night, it was freezing cold. But those costumes were pretty outstanding that he did, and we were electrified. We had lights on them.
Yeah, you guys are like dancing with each other, and your dates are on the side.
Right. Yeah. There was actually a little scene. Yeah, Jeff actually wrote one other scene during the prom where John Apicella is up on a lifeguard stand looking over everybody, and Ari and I steal the ladder so he can't get down. But they didn't put that in the film, and I think wisely so, because when it's the climax of the movie, we really don't want to be seeing Willie and Phil pulling a prank on the coach. It kind of didn't have anything to do with anything.
Yeah.
So that was one of those times where you have some cut and you go, yeah, well, that's fine.
Yeah, Rod Stewart's backup band was playing at the prom. Yeah, they sounded pretty good.
Oh yeah.
I went to a 35th anniversary screening a couple months ago. Joyce Heiser and Sherilyn Fenn were at, and in San Francisco, and it was a lot of fun, and they had fun sharing memories about it on stage and stuff. And Joyce has been on a total of 3 times now, and she's just an absolute sweetheart.
Yeah, she was really lovely to work with, as was Sherilyn. We weren't in any scenes with Sherilyn, but she was good to hang out with.
Mm-hmm. And Deborah's a sweetheart, and Tony.
Yeah.
And I like Ari a lot too. I interviewed Stu. I don't know if you know this, but he has multiple sclerosis.
Ari?
Stu Charno.
Oh, Stu. No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I interviewed him 2 years ago. He was actually the first one, and he just got very belligerent with me, and he was very sad. It was heartbreaking.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, that's sad to hear. Yeah.
Yeah, he's not doing so good.
Yeah.
But it's a magical movie and a great script, great comedy. It's getting its 35th anniversary on Blu-ray soon.
That's what I heard. Yeah. And Ari and I, when we run into each other still, well, I live on the other coast, although last time I was in LA, I ran into him. We always greet each other with the language. No. Sneer, Frank, no. It's always the introduction. In fact, one time he left this long message on my phone machine in that language. And it just went on. And I came home with my girlfriend, and I am playing back the message, and she's like, "What is that?" I said, "Oh, yeah, it's just Ari." But we still do that. Yeah, it was kind of a combination of language of, I had been in this really awful production in college of Aristophanes' The Birds, and the Birds had a language, so we took a little bit from that. It was sort of like a combination of that and Yiddish, and then whatever. Then it became its own thing.
It's just brilliant. It's just brilliant. You guys should have had your own spin-off.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, of course. A couple years after Just One of the Guys, you did an episode of Sledgehammer. How was that?
That was neat. Frankly, I wasn't too happy with my performance in that, but the director was the nicest director, Bill Bixby.
Bill Bixby, yeah.
Yeah, Bill Bixby directed it, and he absolutely couldn't have been nicer. And Bud Cort was on that episode, and he was nice to hang out with. Usually, being a guest star on a TV can be pretty lonely, so I usually like to sort of team up with, like, another guest star.
Yeah.
And on that, it was Bud Cort, and he had some interesting and nice things to talk about. But Bixby, he even, after the shooting was done, he used to call the actors at home and say, "Oh, I finished the episode. We cut it together. You look great. Just wanted to thank you for being in it." I mean, he really was above and beyond.
Yeah, my great aunt, she was the head of craft services at the Hilton in San Francisco. She knew Bill Bixby and his mother, and she knew a lot of famous people, but she absolutely adored Bill Bixby.
Yeah, and too bad he died rather young.
Yeah.
Too.
That took a lot of people by surprise, I think.
Yeah.
And Bud Cort was in that episode too.
Right.
Wow, what an eccentric genius he is.
Yeah.
I love this this quirky little theatrical movie ensemble you did called Miss Firecracker.
Yeah. Miss Firecracker was an amazing experience. Ultimately, a very frustrating experience because the script that Beth Henley wrote for the film was absolutely brilliant, and it went way beyond what the original play, the Miss Firecracker contest, was, and really made it almost more of like a Nashville sort of film where all of the contest organizers and people in the town all had their own little stories, and almost all of that was cut. So Trey Wilson and Ann Wedgeworth and Amy Wright and Van Cox and me and I were greatly cut back in that film. But shooting it was incredible. It just had an incredible cast. Holly Hunter was an absolute dream to work with. And likewise Mary Steenburgen and
Tim Robbins
and Alfred Woodard and Scott Glenn. It was just this amazing cast and also a remarkable script that unfortunately, not people didn't really get to see.
Yeah, maybe if Robert Altman had directed it, it probably would have turned out that way.
Right, yeah. And Thomas Schlamme, the director, was phenomenal, but he didn't have final cut. So he wasn't able to, have the movie that he would have preferred.
I think he's married to Tracy Ullman. I think he's married to Tracy Ullman, if I'm not mistaken.
No, he's married to Christine Lottie.
Oh, Christine Lottie, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, who was actually down there on the shoot. She was pregnant and had their first child partway through our filming.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, it's sort of a funny story with that. We discovered I hung out a lot with Trey Wilson and Van Cox and Amy Wright, and there was a long stretch of the movie that we weren't shooting a lot, so we just socialized a lot. And we saw in the newspaper that there was a restaurant in Jackson, Mississippi. We were shooting in Yazoo City that had 10-cent oyster happy hour.
Mm-hmm.
And we were saying, oh, we got to go to this, we got to go to this. And it was never, it was working out that we weren't allowed to, able to be free enough to go. Well, when Christine had her baby, the shooting pretty much stopped for that day. They were shooting things like drive-ups and stuff like that. So we said, okay, wow, now is our chance. We get to go and get dime oysters. Well, so we go there, and then we realize after we're there, oh, we're across the street from the hospital. So we said, well, then let's visit. So we got like flowers, and we went up, and and Christine and Tom were like, oh, that's so nice of you. You drove all the way down here to do this. Oh, that's so sweet. And none of us said, well, actually, we came down for the oysters, but yeah.
Yeah, that's a great movie. I've never seen anyone do the play and stuff. That would be interesting to see the play version.
Yeah. Well, Holly was in the play.
Mm-hmm.
Holly was in the original play, and she was really one of the most generous actors I've ever worked with.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. How about Beastmaster 2?
Beastmaster 2. Well, another one where we improvised a bit. James Avery and I were teamed up, and in the audition, I kind of went off the script a little bit,
mm-hmm.
and I think that helped. And the director didn't really speak English, so James and I went off script a bit and did some ad-libbing in that film. And then word got back to the director from people on the crew saying, actually, this stuff is pretty good. So he actually encouraged us to do a little bit of going off the script. So that was it was fun to work with James. And then the writer of that film, or one of the writers, Jim Wynorski, not to our knowledge, wrote another film that we were written into. So we ended up being teamed up again in a film that, well, now it's released on video as Little Miss Millions. It originally ended up being a USA movie called Home for Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
And it's mostly known now as the first starring role for Jennifer Love Hewitt,
mm-hmm.
Which is why it's marketed featuring her. Howard Hessman was the other star in that film.
Yeah, I know Jim. He's a very interesting guy.
Oh, yeah, he is. He's quite a character.
Yeah.
Have you had him on the show?
Oh, yes. And I met him at an event about a year ago or so and stuff. Yeah, he's a real character. And I see him on Facebook every day just posting hilarious pictures.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's a really funny guy.
Good.
How was working with Mark Singer?
Oh, good. Yeah. Yeah, he was very nice to work with. I also appreciated that I had seen his Taming of the Shrew. They recorded it. He did, I think, at ACT in San Francisco. It's really terrific production of Taming of the Shrew. That he was Petruchio, and it was recorded, and I saw it. So he was very proud of having done that.
Mm-hmm. How about working with Kari Wuhrer?
Kari Wuhrer. We didn't really have anything with Kari Wuhrer, so I can't really attest to that.
Mm-hmm. I saw her recently. She had some Botox done to her lips.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I've interviewed quite a few women who had Botox done to them, and I'm just thinking, like, why? You're already beautiful as it is, you know?
Right.
How about Wiggs Hauser?
Wiggs Hauser, well, again, we didn't really have anything much with him, but he also kind of camped it up a little bit in that film.
Mm-hmm.
I love Wiggs Hauser in Norman Mailer's film. I think it's called Tough Guys Don't Dance.
Yes.
Yeah, Tough Guys Don't Dance. Wiggs Hauser is phenomenal in that film.
He is. I mean, he's one of those guys who should have been a huge name.
Yeah, I know. He did all of these sort of,
late night B movie,
not A-list films, and I think I agree with you. I think he should have been more of an A-list.
Yeah. I was working on Married with Children.
That was neat. It was lonely because I was the only guest star on that episode.
Mm-hmm.
And interestingly, the 3 plays in rotating rep that Cassavetes directed,
mm-hmm.
I was in charge of casting the children. So I cast a 9-year-old Christina Applegate in one of the Cassavetes shows. And then I was on Married with Children, and I said, I don't expect you to remember me, but I, did the Cassavetes shows with you. And she said, oh, yeah. And then totally ingenuously, not insulting, she said, gee, I remembered you as being a lot taller. And because I'm pretty short. And I said, yeah, well, that's because you were just so big. And but very nice cast. What's her name? What's the lead woman's name?
Katie Seagal.
What?
Katie Seagal.
Oh, Seagal, yeah. Right. She was going through a difficult pregnancy
mm-hmm.
that she ultimately miscarried, but so she wasn't on that episode. But one thing that really impressed me with that show was that instead of having these warm-up comedians for the audience, they just showed clips of old episodes. They were around 100 episodes when I did my my guest star thing on there. And it really warmed the audience up. In fact, I was looking at it, and I found sitcoms that could be kind of nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
But it really loosened me up, too, because the stuff was so funny. And then doing that show was like doing a rock concert. I mean, people were just cheering, and when they introduced all the members of the cast, they're cheering. They introduced me. They cheered. They had no idea who I was, but they cheered anyway. So that was, it was a good experience.
Yeah, it's still my favorite sitcom. It's hilarious.
Yeah, it's amazing how often it still plays. It's kind of like the I Love Lucy of its generation.
Yeah, I got a DVD of the whole series.
Oh, you do?
Yeah. Because I love it that much.
Yeah, that's great.
So why did you leave acting?
I didn't choose to. It was my career just went downhill, and that was a very tough thing to go through. And I could probably spend a lot of time saying why I think that happened, but I'd say the short version is that there were some things that were very much not in my control, and then some things that if I had to do them over again, I'd do differently.
Mm-hmm.
But it happens. It can happen to actors that their career just kind of dries up. But I have found a new life in teaching, both in acting and in playwriting. I became a playwright, and I've done, pretty decently as a playwright, actually.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm currently teaching at an all-women's college, the oldest all-women's college in the United States, called Wesleyan College in Macon, Georgia. And my official title is Artist in Residence Playwriting, and I teach acting there and playwriting, and that's been great.
Oh, that's great. Do you get satisfaction doing it that you don't get when you act?
It's a different kind of satisfaction. Yeah, it's a different kind. I also think that as I've gotten older, when I was younger, I had to act. It was no choice. I would have kind of lost my mind if I wasn't acting.
Mm-hmm.
And it was that important to me. Now I look at people acting and I think boy, that looks really tiring. So that passion for actually doing the activity itself is sort of wafted away, which I think is a good thing, actually, in that I don't feel like I'm missing out so much.
Well, you came up at a time where people acted more slowly, and now everything's just fast, fast, fast.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you ever at least do a play sometimes?
I haven't done a play in many, many years. I did in L.A. I used to do a lot of plays in L.A.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got involved with an organization in L.A. called the Virginia Avenue Project, and it paired up theater and film professionals with at-risk kids, or quote-unquote at-risk kids. And sometimes they would write and you'd act in it, or direct it and act in it. There were all different kind of permutations of things that they did. And that was a really good sort of transitioning activity for me, because it was sort of part acting and part directing and part writing, but also working with kids, and it was all about the working with kids. So that was a different kind of experience. I really liked doing theater in LA, and LA sometimes gets a bad rap for its theater scene, but there is and I think continues to be, a very vital theater scene there. So I found toward the end, some productions I did, it was less of an artistic experience. It was more kind of like getting the product. It was like doing television, not getting paid.
Mm-hmm.
So that soured me a little bit, but I still think very, very highly of what the theater scene in LA is.
Yeah, it seems like people do theater in LA only to get discovered, and that's why they have such hostility towards it, because LA is not a theater town, and it's like you gotta go up on stage and work on your craft and do it for yourself. Don't worry about getting discovered. Just go up there and do it, and go to auditions for movies and television. That's all you gotta do.
Yeah. In fact, I would even say to younger actors when I was acting is that, and they would try to promote themselves, and I think that's great. You should, definitely use this to promote yourself, but obviously that's not why you would do this.
Yeah.
And increasingly, actually, it's kind of funny, as I found as the theater scene got stronger, there seemed to be less and less of industry people going to use the theaters to find talent. I don't know if that's still the case or not.
Mm-hmm.
But I know a fair amount of actors that do TV and movies and commercials to support themselves so that they can afford to do theater for no money.
Right.
That the theater is really the central part of their lives, but they do that, do all those other things. Yeah, commercials was a nice thing in my career. I never thought I would like doing commercials, and I ended up, loving doing them and also doing quite well financially doing them.
Mm-hmm. Wait, how long have you been teaching now?
How long have I been teaching?
Mm-hmm.
I've been at Wesleyan for I'm going into my 13th year.
Oh, so it's still a fairly recent thing.
Yeah, I was doing some teaching before that though in L.A.
Mm-hmm.
I did some teaching at University of Judaism. I taught at a Japanese translation school. I don't speak Japanese, but I didn't have to for that job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Robert, that's great that at least you're happy and you're doing what you love. So, are you working at home during this quarantine time?
Yeah. It's almost embarrassing how little it's affected my day-to-day life. Yeah, I'm working at home and I'm teaching remotely, which is pretty interesting, teaching acting remotely. But so I'm still doing that, and also writing plays.
Mm-hmm.
But it was disappointing. I had a play that was going to have a public reading in New York on March 23rd that obviously got canceled. But I'm still pretty active doing that.
Oh, that's just wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, Robert, I thank you so much for coming on today, and I'm glad that you're still doing what you love. And I just, thank you for coming on, and I hope you stay safe.
Thank you. Yeah, you too. And let me know, is there any kind of link to this or anything like that?
Oh, yeah, because I posted on YouTube.
Okay. Is there a way you could maybe send me that information?
Yes, I can.
Great. Good. Well, I'm very happy that you were interested, and obviously you did some very good research, too.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, I get a lot of praise for my research.
Yeah.
Well,
Good.
you have yourself a great day, sir.
Okay, you too. Thanks.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Well, there you have it. Robert Fieldsteel. Ain't he a cool dude? Man, I just love hearing stories like that of people doing what they love, for years, and then they can't do it anymore, and then they find something new that they love. That is just wonderful. That is just awesome. If you like this video, everyone, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, add me as a friend on Facebook, join my Tommy Kovac comedian page on Facebook, follow me on Twitter and Instagram, and all that fun stuff. Well, that's all the time we have this week on Splat from the Past. Until next time, this is Tommy Throwback Kovac saying, there's no shame in living in the past, because the present sucks. Later, dudes.